So have any of you ever moved to a new school? Like, okay, a few. How many of you just lived in the same town, same school your whole life? Anybody? Oh, okay. So, wow, you are not going to understand this first illustration at all. But everybody else, and neither will the homeschoolers. But so I moved to a new school, new town when I was in 8th grade. And when I mean new, I didn't not the same town, different school. We're talking like just didn't know anybody. I didn't know a single person in the school. So I walk in 8th grade, and I'm a little bit awkward, okay? I don't know, a lot of people are in 8th grade, but I'm exceptionally awkward, okay, big dork kind of thing. In fact, I found my yearbook picture from 8th grade, if anybody's curious. No? Good then. Oh, yeah, okay. So here we go. We'll just zoom it in there, all right. So that was me in 8th grade, and as you can tell, I was a ladies' magnet, totally. No, so I'm walking into school, I don't know anybody, and I look like I'm in 3rd grade, I think, but anyways, and so I'm trying to make friends and all that, but actually at first you're just trying to find your class and do all that, and I'm going to take this away. And so I'm walking, it's easy at first, okay, because you walk in and all you have to do is go to first period and sit down. Okay, it doesn't really matter. You just go, and it's easy to find a chair in class because it's either assigned seating or there's always somewhere you can sit alone, and that's what I always did. And I went and found a place to sit down. 2nd period, fine. 3rd period, fine. And then comes what I like to call the cafeteria effect. And if you've ever moved to a new school and you didn't know anybody, you know about the cafeteria experience. It's the worst. So you get, and it's all bad because you get in line and you go and you get the food and you're like, oh, this school has nasty food too. Like they have things like, steak fingers, okay? First of all, it's deceptive. It's not steak. I don't know what's inside of that. And steak is not supposed to be in fingers, okay? I don't even think cows have fingers. But anyways, and so there's this whole gross, you're like, the food's disgusting. And then so I get out of the line and I go, and then I realize I have to find somewhere to sit down. In my school, every school's different. Mine had round tables, okay? And so I'm walking around and I'm looking for an empty table because I didn't know what to do. There's a table of girls, but I'm scared of girls. Look at me, all right? And so I don't want to sit with them. And then there's guys, and you don't know when you work into a new school, which group of guys are jerks, right? Because you know how some are, okay? And which are going to be nice, and which are going to be whatever, all the different types. So I'm just walking around. I'm literally walking around the cafeteria looking for a place to sit and thinking I'm just going to eat standing up. Because I can't just go up to the table and be like, I am now your friend, okay? And sit down with them. I just couldn't do that. So I'm walking around. All of a sudden, this guy was like, hey, are you new? And I was like, yes. He goes, sit with us. And I was like, outside I said, okay, cool. Inside I was like, yes, okay? Because I had a friend, and these people actually became friends at first. Eventually I found other friends because I discovered, they were different, okay? But anyways, they were not the people I normally, they talked about things that my little innocent brain was like, I didn't even know. But anyway, so I got away from that eventually, but I was just happy to have somebody to be with because that was so uncomfortable. Have you been that uncomfortable? One of the most, worse than that, okay, for me growing up was going to church. Now wait, I got to be really specific. When my family, between my freshman and sophomore year, we moved to a new town, and my dad was not working at church, and we were working at church, so we're just looking for a church, okay? And so we're going, visiting places, and every Sunday or Wednesday night, we were visiting new churches, and it was awful. Let's just tell you, it was awful. Because the same thing that happened in the cafeteria happened every time I went to church. I would walk in a youth group, kind of like ours, okay? And I'd walk in there, and there'd be all these people my age, I didn't know anybody, and no one would talk to me, except for drive-by talks, okay? A drive-by conversation is a conversation you can have literally in a car driving by. Hey, how's it going? Good? There you go. All right? That's all it was. It's that was all I would get. Hey, what's your name? Jonathan. All right, nice. And they move on. And I didn't have any of that. And it was so uncomfortable. And who do I sit with next during service? And who all this kind of stuff. I hated it. And I hated going to all these different churches. And so finally we landed. My parents went to this church. And they were like, oh, the worship music was so good there. And the truth is, compared to what I grew up in, it was amazing. Because I went to a church that had less people in the whole church than are in this room right now, okay, in middle school. And the music was okay, literally that's it. We shall see the king, we shall see. Okay, it was not good. And so we went to this church and it was amazing. Okay, they had this great music and everything. And you know what? I didn't care. Because it was so uncomfortable every time they made me go to youth and sit with those people that didn't want to talk to me. And so we kept coming back, and there was one highlight. There was this cute girl, and so I kind of wanted to go back to that church because maybe there's a chance. There wasn't a chance. But anyways, and I wanted to go, but just in case. But then something happened. The 3rd week we were there, this guy named Tim. Okay, Tim Barnett. Tim was a total nerd, okay? As nerd as whoever you think of as nerd, that's Tim, okay? And he was goofy and nerdy, and he walked up to me. I'm sitting in the middle of the auditorium on Sunday morning with my parents, and he says, hey, do you want to come sit with us? Because there was this section where all the youth sit, and he said, you want to come sit with us? And I was like, sure. And I went over, and other people started talking to me and all that kind of things, and I ended up going to youth camp with that group, and ended up, so this was a really important time in my personal life, because when you're a little kid, you believe in Jesus because your mommy believes in Jesus, right? I mean, if mommy says anything, you're like, okay, it's true. And then like as you grow up, at some point it becomes your own faith. And I think it was already my own faith, but it was really developing into what that meant at that part of my life. And suddenly I connected with a group of people who love Jesus, and I just tell you, it changed who I was completely. And it's crazy to think that this dork, I don't even know where he lives now. I don't know, okay, named him, was the guy who connected me and made me get past that, okay? Because, it was really awkward for me up until then. Now, 13, almost 14 years ago, I became the youth pastor here, which is weird because some of you are not even 14 yet. So you're like, I was working here before you were even born. And I'm really thankful I don't work in the nursery, because then I'd have those conversations with you like, I changed your diaper. That would just be weird. So, no, I didn't do any of that for any of you, thank goodness. But I've been here for a long time. So about 13, almost 14 years ago, I came and I decided this, okay, I don't want this to be a youth group where people experience what I experienced. With all of those churches, and I hated going. I did not want to go. I love Jesus, but I didn't want to go to church, okay? I didn't want to go be around. I was like, this is going to be different. And you know what? We were not different at all back then. In fact, I actually was sitting down talking to some people like you. They're not like you. They're different in this regard. And I was like, come on, we want to make people feel welcome. And they said this: we don't want new people. I was like, why? Because they mess things up. And this is the truth. They liked the youth group that they were in, and they didn't want to have to talk to people they didn't know. They didn't want to include new people. They didn't want to see people become part of the group. And we had to change that. And I was like, inside, I was like, you guys need to get saved because there's something wrong with you. But that was the culture, and the culture is not that, right? But here's something that we all have to keep in mind. It is very tempting. If you've been a part, now some of you are new, okay, and I hope that you haven't experienced some of the things I just talked about. But for those of us that have been here a long time, it can be very tempting to just get really excited about me and my friends. Because you're here because you like it. Now, some of you, you're new, sort of, and you're like, I haven't decided if I like it. But there's a lot of people that are here that they come every week, not because mom makes them. Your mom sometimes don't even bring you. Some of you beg to come, right? And you come, why? Because you like it, because of the friendships that you have, because maybe you experience God's presence during worship, or you learn something, and there's a lot of different reasons I know that you come. But you come because you want to, right? And you like it, and so sometimes we get to something we like so much, and then we start talking about, hey, we want to bring somebody new, and you're like, that might complicate things. Because isn't it more fun? If we just go out to eat, you just sit with those 5 friends that are your best friends. Why do I want to bring in a new person into this friend group? They're just going to talk about awkward stuff, and we can't talk about our inside things, and it messes things up, and that was their point. It messes things up. But we have to remember something, okay? There's a couple things that I need you to know, okay? A couple things that I want you to remember as we think about this. Here's a really big one, okay? That everybody spends eternity somewhere. Now, you are including that. So you are going to spend eternity somewhere. Do you know that? The person next to you, just look at the person next to you and just say, he's talking about you. I am. I'm talking about you, because you will spend eternity somewhere, okay? But think about this, though. The person that you sit next to in math class, who's like really good at math and drives you nuts, okay? They're going to spend eternity in heaven somewhere, okay? The person that is in your sport, in your team with you, or that's in your section, or whatever, they're going to spend eternity somewhere, okay? The people you eat lunch with are going to spend eternity, and they're going to spend eternity with Jesus or not with Jesus, okay? That's just the fact of life. Now, this is really disconnected because you're like, yeah, but eternity's a long time from now, okay? Probably not going to die in a car wreck on the way home. Could, but probably not, okay? So it's probably still a long way. So it feels really disconnected, okay? No one's going to die in a car wreck, okay? All right, I know what to pray about after service. All right, everyone, so let's get something more connected to now, okay? Everyone needs the hope and life that Jesus gives. Now, if you're not a Christian, you're not going to understand this, okay? But those of you that are, and I think that's the most of you, you experienced something when you gave your life to Jesus, that your life was different. You felt you had a purpose in your life that you didn't have before. There was a hope that you had. There's like something new. When something bad is going on in your life, you have this hope that you now have that you didn't have before. You've experienced that. If you've given your life to Jesus, if you have lived for long with your relationship with God, you've probably gone through a season when you were super stressed out and you knew what to do. You were able to turn to God and ask him for help. There are people that have no idea what that experience is like that are in your life. That everyone needs, I think everybody needs that. See, there are people that will go through their entire life and never know what it's like to have the life of Jesus that you've experienced already. They'll go through their entire life and do all kinds of things, and they'll get married and they'll have kids, or they'll do all the different things, get jobs, but they'll never experience this, the fullness of life that they can have. And I think that we have a role to play in that. Because some people, they just don't know. They think that it's going to be awful. This is true. You have friends in your life that think that giving their life to Jesus or getting to know him is going to be awful. They don't know how good it is, okay? And we got to help them know. Now, I have a little daughter. Some of you know she's almost 6. But when she turned 1, okay, we were trying to be like good parents and not give her sugar until she was 1, okay? So at her first birthday, we went and we bought her one of these, okay, a nothing bundt cake. Did anybody like these? Okay, I'm not giving it away. I'm eating it after service, okay? But anyway, so we went and bought her one of these. This is a visual aid for me. And so I needed an excuse to buy one. And so we got her one of these, and we put it in front of her, and we thought she was going to be so excited. And she had never had cake until that point. And she said, mm-mm. We're like, come on, try it. Mm-mm. And so now I'm trying to reason with the 1-year-old. I don't know if you've ever tried to do that before, but it doesn't work very good. And so eventually, here she is on her birthday. She is crying because I'm trying to get her to eat a piece of cake because I know how good it is. So I am a good dad, I think. I try to do my best. And so what I did was I took my finger and I stuck it in the icing like this, and I shoved it in her mouth. And she went, and then she attacked. That was really good. Then she attacked that cupcake and began to devour the entire thing because she realized how delicious the thing was. Now, I am not saying that we need to shove Jesus down people's throats, okay? That's exactly what don't you shove your religion down my throat. Okay, maybe I could have picked a better illustration. But what I'm trying to get the point across is my daughter thought it was going to be disgusting, okay? She probably thought it was like squash or something, you know? She's like, oh, you're not going to make me eat that. And she's like, no. And she had no idea. All she needed was a taste. And as soon as she had a taste, her whole thing changed. And what I think we need to sometimes do is help people get a taste of how good the life with Jesus is. And if we can do that, if we can help people do that, God will do the rest, okay? And so we have to show them a taste. And this is something that is so important to Jesus. And how important is it? Well, I'll show you. If you have read maybe the New Testament of your Bible, you may have noticed it starts with Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Have you heard of these? Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. These are what we call the Gospels. These are 4 different guys, and they all wrote about the life of Jesus. They all wrote about the same stuff, basically, which is why you're reading your Bible and you're like, I think I already read this. It was really similar, okay? But they all wrote about the life of Jesus. And there's Matthew. Matthew was following Jesus. He was one of his disciples, okay? And so he's writing this story about Jesus, and he gets to the end, and he's thinking about the last things that Jesus said to him. And this is one of the things that he wrote down, okay? He wrote this, therefore go and make disciples of all nations. He remembered Jesus sitting there talking to him and telling him and his friends, go and make disciples of all nations. One of the last things Jesus said to him. That's Matthew. Then we have Mark. Mark was not one of his disciples, but he was a friend of the disciples. In fact, we think that Mark and Peter, who was one of Jesus' disciples, sat down and talked about all of this. And Mark wrote down the stuff Peter told him. And he wrote down this thing that Jesus said. He said, go into all the world and preach the good news to all creation. Whoever believes and is baptized will be saved. So here we are in Matthew. We see it in Matthew. We see it in Mark. Then there's this guy, Luke. Luke was a doctor. He was not a disciple. He was a doctor. But he knew the disciples. He hung out with them. He was friends with them. And so he asked them questions, and he wrote down the stories. And one day he was like, and then what did he say? And one of them was like, oh, I remember. And this is what he said. Jesus said this. He said, that it is written that the Christ will suffer and rise from the dead, and on the 3rd day, and repentance and forgiveness of sins will be preached in his name to all nations, beginning at Jerusalem, and you are my witnesses of these things. He's like, I remember. He said that we're going to be preaching this to all the nations, and we're going to be the witnesses that tell people about it. He remembered all of these things, and so Luke wrote this for us. And then there's John, the last one. Don't worry, we're almost done. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and here's John. And here's John. John just keeps it simple, all right? He's like, oh yeah, I remember that conversation I had with Jesus. He said this, peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, I'm sending you. Simple. Jesus just looked at John and said, hey, I'm sending you. I'm sending you to the world to teach people about me and to change the world. So here we go. All of the Gospels teach this. He told the disciples that they're going to go to the whole world. He's going to send them out. And so you know what happened? So Jesus, he raises from the dead, talks to them for a while, and he goes to heaven. And you know what they did? Did they go to all the world? Nope. They went to Jerusalem, and they just stayed there. Now, they did reach people in Jerusalem, but they didn't go anywhere. They just stayed right there. They got really comfortable in their little world of Jerusalem, and it was amazing. And they just stayed there for a really long time. They didn't want to go do anything. Jesus said, go to all the world. That's okay. We're here, okay? And they got really comfortable, I think, until something happened. There's a guy named Stephen. And one day, Stephen ticked some people off, basically just teaching about Jesus, and people didn't like that. And so what they did was they got some stones, and they put Stephen up against the wall, and they just started throwing stones at him until they beat him to death, okay? And so they stoned Peter to death, and the disciples go, I think it's time for us to go to all the world. And then they spread out and they began to teach the Jesus everywhere. See, as long as they were comfortable with where they were, they didn't go out and they didn't do anything. As soon as things got a little bit uncomfortable, they went out. Now, I'm afraid that sometimes we get comfortable in our little church world and us knowing Jesus, and I love the worship time, and sometimes PJ's funny, and hopefully it's this week, and none of this different stuff we do, and we get to go do this fun thing, and our camp's going to be amazing, and all this stuff, and we get to that, and we need to maybe get woken up that there's a world out there that needs us to reach them. Now, we could try putting one of you against a wall and throwing a few stones. You want to volunteer? Or are you volunteering to throw the stones? Okay, but anyways, you're volunteering. Okay, this is weird. Why, you want to go the next day and say, I got stoned at church last night? Okay. Anyways, different. Okay, anyways. It'd be different if I wasn't holding a rock. But here's the thing. Let's get excited about the idea that we're supposed to do something. And I think this is the kind of youth group that we are, the kind of place that we are. But sometimes I think we need to be reminded. Now, a couple weeks ago, Matt talked to you about what our group mission is, like what our vision, what we want to be as a group, okay? If you weren't here, I'll let you know what he said, okay? This is it, that we want to create a place where the unconnected get connected. That we want to be a place where we are intentionally creating this place where unconnected people get connected, where people who are not, that don't know who Jesus, get to know Jesus. Where people who do not have a Christian community get a Christian community. That's what we want to be. So here's the dream, that every person that walks through those doors finds a place where people care about them. Every single person. Where every single person feels welcome. Where every single person that comes in feels like, hey, there's people there that care about me. Let's just tell you, okay, if you're new here, okay, you're going to get to see the inside scoop. So this is good, okay? I want you to know what we're all about before you even get in it. But this is what we want. That somebody gets invited who's, doesn't know God, maybe. Or maybe they used to know God and they've been away from him. And they come in and you meet people who care about you, genuinely. And they show it, and they talk to you, and they sit with you, and they ask you to hang out with them, and you get to build these relationships. And over time, you get to know some people, and they care about you, and you grow, and then one day, you encounter Jesus for real. And then your life will be completely changed. And you'll get to know this hope that I was talking about and this life that it's talking about. But it doesn't happen on somebody's first week. And usually people don't come back unless they get to know people and connect with people. So we want to be a place that purposefully connects people. So how does that work? Well, here's a really important part. We have to create it. If we don't create it, it won't happen. This is why so many people hate church. Because they go there and they're just a bunch of cliquey people. There are a bunch of people that don't care that I'm there. Because naturally, if we're not careful, this is what happens to us. We just want to be with our friends, and there's a new person, who cares? There's that person, I don't know him, who cares? But inside, you're like, I guess I love them for Jesus, but I don't. And if we're not careful, we let that worldly ideas get in our hearts, and we need to be different. So what you have to do is you have to be a connector. You have to be the one of the ones. You do. I'm not talking to the person next to you. I'm talking to you. Actually, I am talking to them too, but I'm specifically talking to you. Is that confusing? In fact, maybe what we need to do is you need to say, what can I do? Okay? What can I do? Can you say that with me? Ready? What can I do? Oh, y'all are so good. Let's do it one more time. Ready? What can I do? Right. So I'm going to tell you what you can do. The I that you can do, okay? And I'm going to give you a couple of things, and they're all going to start with I. You ready? Here we go. What can I do? Number one is you can invite. You need to invite people to come to this place because I think it's pretty awesome. And you don't need to make it weird. Okay, we make it weird. I don't know why we make it weird. The other day, I asked AJ, I said, hey, do you want to go play tennis this Saturday? And he was like, yeah. Was that weird? No. Okay. But what if I would have gone up to him like, hey, AJ, I just wanted to talk to you about something. Just see if you're interested or something. It's okay if you're not. This Saturday, now no judgment, but if you wanted to, if you're interested maybe, I thought maybe you'd like to come play tennis at Warren Park. But, if you don't want to, it's cool. If you're busy, it's cool. How weird would that be? Like, you're like, are you going to murder me while we're playing tennis? Because why are you asking me? And then we go to ask people for church, and we're like, hey, I was wondering if maybe it's okay if you don't want to. No judgment. No, if you want to come to church with me. And all of a sudden, it's super weird. Why don't we just be like, hey, we're doing this thing. Do you want to come? Okay, and maybe they say yes, maybe they say no, but it's just, you just invite, and don't make it weird. You ask people to do stuff all the time. I mean, right? Don't you have friends you ask them to do stuff with you? So this is simple. You ask them to come. Now, I do things to try to make it extra easy for you. That's why next week is the Amplify event. You know the thing they were talking about? Okay, and we're going to do things like this. We're going to play Gaga Ball, okay, at 6:30. So what you do is you tell your friends, hey, at 6:30, we're going to be playing Gaga Ball. If you're a junior high boy, okay, or I guess girls like this too, but if your friends would like Gaga Ball, you tell them, hey, we're playing Gaga Ball, and I want to see if you can smack me with the ball, okay? And see if they'll come, okay? Maybe it's 9 Square they'll like. Maybe it's the s'mores after service that they're going to like with the fires and all of that. But what we want is you use these as an excuse to invite somebody. Just invite them to that, and then we're going to have an amazing service. Is going to be good, and we're going to hope that something happens in their life. So take advantage of it. If you don't take advantage of it, there's something. Come on, do it. Just take advantage of it and use this as an opportunity to invite. Now, I hope that every week is a good week. I try really hard to make every week a good week, but I want you to invite, and then you need to be like sometimes creative. Okay? This is a way, sometimes on your own you can be creative. I know somebody that invited people to go out to eat, and then they would pay for their food, and then they would bring them here. Okay, one of them didn't tell them they were coming here, and that was interesting, because this guy came and he was ticked off, okay? And he was like, I'm never hanging out with you on a Wednesday again. And then it was really interesting, because he was so mad at the beginning of the service, and at the end of service, and this is a true story, in the service he said, do y'all do this every week? And I was like, yeah. He's like, can I come next week? And I was like, yeah. And it's like something changed, and we couldn't believe that things could be the way that they were. And let me just point out one other thing. If you do invite somebody, and they do come, did you notice he asked if he could come back next week? Don't assume that they know that. If somebody comes, invite them again, okay? If I invite AJ to play tennis on Saturday, and then the next Saturday I just show up at Warren Park, I'm like, where is he? Okay, I'm going to be hitting the ball by myself, because he's going to be like, you didn't ask me to come back. Like, this is not their church yet. They don't know that it's okay. And so you have to invite them. How long do you do that? Until you ask them to come, and they go, why are you still asking me? You know I'm going to be there, okay? Then you can stop asking them. But until they feel like it's their own place, you keep inviting, okay? So that's the first one. It's simple, invite. Just ask. Just ask somebody. If you don't ask somebody, they can't say yes. And if they say no, it's not a big deal, okay? You've asked somebody to go out to eat, and they said they can't, okay? It's not a big deal. So don't make a big deal of it. Number 2 is involve. And this is huge. Involved. We need to, and when people come into this place, whether it's here, whether it's Sunday night or Sunday morning, we need to involve them. Okay, and what does it mean? What does that really mean, to involve? Well, I mean, you kind of get it. What do we do before service? We hang out and talk, right? So how do you involve somebody? You hang out and talk with them, right? That's easy, okay? Yeah, we can do that. During service, you ask somebody to sit with you. When we're hanging out after, you talk to people that you don't know, and you meet people, and you involve them in what we're doing. On Sunday night, you sit by somebody that might be alone on the bus when we travel somewhere. But I have to sit next to my best friend. Come on, all right, come on. Like, you're going to see them again, okay? So just spend some time with people. Invite them to sit at your table. Let them be on your team. It's intentionally involving somebody that doesn't feel like they're a part of our youth group. It could be their first time. They could have been here for 2 years, and they still are all alone. They still need to be connected. See, this is something that made a huge difference in my life when a little guy named Tim involved me in something, and it changed my life. And so what we got to do is we got to involve people, and that is intentionally letting them be a part of your group. And you can do it. And here's the thing. All of you need to do it, because all of you can reach different people. This is true if you think about inviting, okay? You have a different friend group than him, right? I think, okay? And y'all probably have the same friend group, but y'all have a different friend group than they do, okay? And so what I'm saying is, obviously they're going to invite different people, and the same is true about involving people, okay? I mean, if some like 8th grade guy walks in and all the high school girls go over and talk to him, he might come back and be like, the girls there, they talked to me for the first time in my life, okay? That might work. We might try that. But no, normally what we want to do is we need some 8th grade guys or some guys of similar age to go and hang out with them. So what I'm saying is there's people that you will reach that other people won't. And there's quirks about you that some people will like that will help you reach people that other people can't. And so it's something that we all have to do, is that we invite. And then here's the last one. And this one is going to happen a bit naturally if we do things right, but that is that we inspire. And here's the thing. There's there's some great things that can happen when people come in and they hear a message and they hear teaching, okay? But it's one thing to watch some guy in his 30s talk about worship. It's totally different when you come in and you see the person that you've seen every day in math class or at lunch, and you see them pouring out their heart to God. That's inspiring. And that changed me. When I began to meet other people my age, when I was your age, that just truly loved God, because I had been in a church where people didn't, like, I knew they were faking. They told me they were faking, okay? And then I went to this church and there were people that really love God. It dramatically impacted me. And if you just live out your faith for real, love people for real, love God for real, when they see that you're interested in a message, like, wow, other people want to learn about God, when they see that you worship and that you care about reaching others, it impacts people. So we want to inspire. And so will you help me? Will you do this? Will you help us make this, or will you help us create a place where the unconnected get connected? Will you do that? Because something really cool can happen. Can you imagine that someday there might be somebody who, when they tell their story, you're their Tim, right? I mean, they're going to be like, oh yeah, I went to this youth group, right? And I met this girl. Her name's Valentina. She's kind of crazy, okay? She's kind of hyper and smiles a lot. And but man, she like talked to me, and like nobody had ever talked to me at a church before. And I just felt welcomed. And then they're telling their friends like 10 years down the road, okay? And they're like, oh no, and I went to this church and I met this guy. His name was Jeremiah. I think he had 15 coffees right before service, right? He was like so nice to me, right? and I felt like I belonged for the first time. Okay, you're crazy, dude. And but I don't know, it's you. That's what I'm talking about. It's your name, okay? And what if someday somebody's telling their kids about when they gave their life to Jesus, and it was because of you? Because you went out of the way to invite them and talk to them, and you inspired them. Okay, and who knows who those stories will be? I hope that every single one of you gets to experience inviting somebody, watching them get connected, and then watching them give their life to Jesus. That's a pretty cool thing. I hope that every single one of you get to experience that, and I hope you get to do it multiple times. And it can if you'll be a part of this. If you'll be a part of this, where we are purposefully doing that. So what I want to do as we end our services, I want to pray about two things. Number one is, maybe you've been hearing me talk about being connected, and you're like, I am not connected to God. I don't even really know God, and I'd like to. And in just a moment, we're going to have some time of prayer, and I want to encourage you that you can begin to connect with God tonight. Just you'll be able to. There'll be others going for prayer, and during that time, just go to one of those people. There's going to be people at both sides of the room, and just say, hey, I don't really know God, and I want to. And they'll talk with you, and they'll pray with you for just a moment, and just get you started on that journey. But for all of us, as we're going to sing part of a song, I would like you to ask God a question. Just ask him, is there somebody I should be focusing on connecting? And maybe you'll put somebody in your mind at school. Maybe you'll put somebody in this youth group in your mind that you just need to reach out to and connect. But just say, God, is there somebody that I need to connect? And then you may also just pray about who you're going to bring next week, okay? And but if you need prayer for something, maybe what we talked about, or it could be something else. Something's going on at school, something's going on at home. We take the last 2 minutes of our service to pray. And that's because we believe God can do things in your life. So if you need prayer for anything, when we stand at both sides of the room, there'll be people to pray with you. And we want to do that. Father, I thank you. You love us. And I pray that we would be a youth group that connects, that changes people's lives, and they get to know you for the rest of their life. I pray every person in here would see themselves as a connector, somebody that can invite and inspire, Lord, somebody that can involve others. And I thank you that we are that group where people get to know you. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.